Welcome to this edition of the Head to Head Podcast. I'm your host, Cam McKinney, and this is episode number 164 of the podcast. And in this edition of the podcast, I'm talking about the two biggest surprises in all of baseball at the All-Star break. That's the Boston Red Sox and the San Francisco Giants, who are two of the biggest surprises in all of baseball. These are two teams coming into the year that a lot of people would be at the bottom of the standings, but instead these two teams have two of the best records in all of baseball. The Boston Red Sox have a 55-36 record, while the San Francisco Giants are at 57-32. Let's start with the Boston Red Sox. Why have they turned things around? They didn't do much this offseason. Their big offseason acquisition was Garrett Richards. They gave him $10 million. They came back with a lot of the same roster. Now, a lot of people are going to give the credit to Alex Cora. He comes back after taking a year off from his suspension. But what I think has happened, and I think the biggest reason why the Red Sox have turned it around, is because of their free sluggers. Xander Bogaerts, JD Martinez, and Rafael Devers. All three of those players are playing at an all-star caliber level. We all knew that this offense wasn't going to be their problem, that the reason they weren't very good last year is all three of those players had very mixed seasons. JD Martinez was awful last year. Xander Bogaerts got better as the year went on, and the same with Rafael Devers. None of those three players had their best years last year, and now all three of them have returned to form, and so have the Boston Red Sox. Bogaerts is playing like the best offensive shortstop in all of baseball. Rafael Devers is playing like the best offensive third baseman in all of baseball, and JD Martinez is one of the better DHs in all of baseball. Those three players are the biggest reasons why the Red Sox are where they are right now. Yes, they have had some pretty good pitching this year. I mean, Nathan Eovaldi is having his best season so far as a member of the Red Sox. He was an all-star. Matt Barnes is finally putting it together and being the closer we all thought he could become one day. But I think it's very, very clear that the biggest reason why the Red Sox have bounced back in a massive way is because their free sluggers are acting like sluggers once again. I mean, last year, they could have still been a very good team, even with a bad pitching staff, if Xander Bogaerts, JD Martinez, and Rafael Devers had played like MVPs. They are where they should have been last year. These guys are all-star sluggers. The Red Sox aren't really that big of a surprise if you think about it, because Xander Bogaerts is one of the very best shortstops in all of baseball. Rafael Devers is one of the best hitting third basemen in all of baseball, and JD Martinez might be the very best DH in all of baseball. So if all of those guys play like they're supposed to play, this is how good the Red Sox should be and are right now. And then with the Giants, one of the biggest reasons for their success this year has been the return of Buster Posey, who took a year off due to the pandemic last year, and he has come back in a massive way. He has returned to his MVP form. Buster Posey is hitting .328 with 12 homers, and that 12 homers is really, really good, because in the last couple of years, Buster Posey has really lost his power. He has not been hitting for power. He has still been a decent hitter in Major League Baseball as a catcher, but over the past few years, he has hit for exactly zero power, and this year, he is showing signs of returning to that MVP form. He is the best hitting catcher in all of baseball right now. Yes, you have Yadier Molina. Salvador Perez is hitting the lights out of the baseball, but I still go with Buster Posey, and I think Buster Posey returning to form is the biggest reason why the San Francisco Giants are having this enormous amount of success. Yes, they have a nice roster. Evan Longoria has had a really solid year at third base. It feels like everyone in all of baseball has forgotten what a good third baseman Evan Longoria is, because he's on a team that wasn't very good, and I'm glad to see Longoria on a good team again. I feel like people forget Evan Longoria is without a doubt the greatest Tampa Bay Ray of all time. And the unsung hero of the San Francisco Giants is Brandon Crawford. I have been a huge fan of Brandon Crawford for years and years now. He is the best hitting shortstop that nobody talks about. Brandon Crawford this year already has 18 home runs at that position, and he is a super defender as well. Nobody mentions the name Brandon Crawford when they mention the very best shortstops playing. I mean, he's had a better year than a lot of the guys we know. Carlos Correa. Brandon Brandon Crawford has had a better year. The Giants also have something that even the Red Sox don't have, a true ace in Kevin Gausman. I mean, this is a guy who's had some okay seasons with the Orioles and the Braves before, but this year he has become a true ace. Kevin Gausman has the second best ERA in all of baseball, second to only Jacob deGrom, and Kevin Gausman is having a year. He is finally putting it all together. This is a guy who's shown flashes of having that talent, but this year he is a true ace, and there are a lot of teams that do not have that ace. I mean, this is the year where no pitcher is going beyond 5 innings. Like, I've never seen that before. Remember the Washington Nationals recently won a World Series where they had like 4 aces, Steven Strasburg, Max Scherzer, Patrick Corbin. I mean, that team was full of ace pitchers. Now there is no aces in sight, and the Giants have one. That's why more people should pay attention to the Giants than they are right now, because the Giants are a legitimate threat because they have Kevin Gausman. If Kevin Gausman goes into the postseason pitching like this, there is a realistic chance the San Francisco Giants could ride their ace all the way to the World Series. Another thing that the Red Sox and Giants have in common is these are the two teams that dominated the 2010s. I mean, the San Francisco Giants won 3 World Series in 2010, 2012, and 2014, and the Red Sox won 2 World Series in 2013 and 2018. And in a lot of those years, those two teams were not the favorites to do so. The Giants, in all 3 of the years they won the World Series, going into that year, they were not the prohibitive favorites to win the World Series. And the same thing for the Red Sox in 2013. I mean, that 2013 Red Sox were full of a bunch of veterans like Shane Victorino and Mike Napoli, who put it all together and had a spectacular year, winding up winning the World Series. That's what a lot of those Giants World Series were like. Remember when Cody Ross and Edgar Renteria were having heroic moments on a World Series team? There was also that year where Madison Bumgarner pitched like the greatest pitcher of all time against the Kansas City Royals. It's just kind of weird that these two teams, the Red Sox and Giants, are big market teams, but they're never the prohibitive favorites. There's always the Dodgers, there's always the Yankees, who are thought of to be better than them, but despite all that, they're the ones that keep winning World Series and keep competing at a very, very high level. I mean, the 2018 Red Sox was a powerhouse roster. They had Chris Sale, they had Craig Kimbrell, they had Mookie Betts, Devers, Bogarts, JD Martinez. And here we are at the All-Star break where both of these teams have 2 of the better records in all of baseball, yet people are still doubting them. People would be shocked if the San Francisco Giants or the Boston Red Sox even ended up in the league championship series, let alone the World Series. There are still people doubting these teams. They think of them as teams that are having great regular seasons, but their success will not continue into the postseason. I mean, in the American League, there are people that still believe the Houston Astros and the Chicago White Sox are prohibitive favorites over the Boston Red Sox. And while I don't disagree with all that, like, I wouldn't be shocked if the Boston Red Sox made it to the league championship series. I mean, at this rate, they're on pace to win over 100 games. And the same for the San Francisco Giants. Think about this crazy thing about the Giants. There are 2 teams in their own division that everyone in the world still believes is better than the San Francisco Giants. That's the LA Dodgers, you know, the team that won the World Series last year, and the San Diego Padres, who have Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, and a lot of good pitchers behind those 2. So yes, there are reasons to doubt the Red Sox and the Giants, but at some point you have to look at both of these teams and say to yourself, they're not pretenders, they are legitimate contenders. I mean, the Giants are better than my Mets. I love the Mets. I love what the Mets are doing. I want to see Jacob deGrom pitch all the time. I would be more surprised if the Mets ended up in the National League Championship Series than I would if the San Francisco Giants were. I think the Giants have a better chance of success in the National League. I mean, yes, the Dodgers and the Padres are big hurdles, but so far, the San Francisco Giants have played better than both of those teams. Those teams are more splashier because they have the big names. People are disregarding the San Francisco Giants because of Fernando Tatis Jr., because of Mookie Mookie Betts, because of other big names on the Padres and Dodgers. What people seem to forget is the Giants still have some guys who have won 3 World Series on that team. Buster Posey is maybe the best winner baseball has had since Derek Jeter. I mean, when that guy is on the field, I have faith in their teams to be able to compete and win a World Series. Now, they don't have Madison Bumgarner, and they will lose out on not having him, but they still have Brandon Crawford. They still have Brandon Belt. They're still sort of that team that went on and won those 3 World Series. I mean, they have some guys that have been playing in some big games for over the last decade and a half. And I feel like a massive amount of baseball people are overlooking that fact. Buster Posey is not going to be afraid of the big stage. Fernando Tatis Jr., as great as he is, has never been on that big of a stage. So maybe it's that kind of logical to think Buster Posey will have greater success in the postseason if the Giants end up going that far. It's the same reason why maybe you should think a team like the Red Sox is going to have more success than the Chicago White Sox. The Red Sox are full of guys who just won a World Series in 2018. They have JD Martinez, they have Bogarts, they have Devers. Those 3 guys have been a part of a World Series winning team. Bogarts was part of the 2013 team. We should not be surprised that these players are winning at this rate because they are winners. They have a history of winning. Nathan Eovaldi is still a member of the Boston Red Sox. Remember in 2018 when he pitched like a monster out of the bullpen for the Boston Red Sox? It's the reason they gave him $60 million. So yes, I have faith in Nathan Eovaldi if the Red Sox go to the postseason that he'll have success. At some point, everyone has to come to the realization that the clock is going to strike midnight, and both of these teams, the Red Sox and Giants, are still going to be very good to great teams. They are here to stay, and at the very least, they are going to make the Major League Baseball postseason. And I'll say right now, I don't expect either team to end up winning the World Series. I think this has been very good years for these teams, no matter what ends up happening. I had no idea the Red Sox were going to be this good. I watched the Red Sox on a regular basis because I am a fan of the team, and all 3 of those players have bounced back, and while I think they are fun to watch and they are on the rise, I do not expect them to make it to the World Series. The same for the San Francisco Giants. I thought they were going to be the worst team in their division. They're a lot better than the Rockies, and they might end up being better than both the Dodgers and the Padres. I'll say this right now, I think the American League is more open than the National League. Like, I think the Dodgers are going to end up back in the World Series. For the Red Sox, there is an opening there. Like, yes, I do believe Chicago is better than Boston right now. And yes, I do believe Houston is better than Boston right now. Especially if you saw Houston take down the Red Sox in both of their series so far this year. That was humiliating losses for the Red Sox. But I would not be shocked to see the Red Sox in the World Series. I don't think it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be shocked. At this point, there's only one thing that these 2 teams could do to change my minds about them not being World Series favorites, and that's to make a huge move at the trade deadline. And there are some guys that both of these teams that could add that would change my opinions on both of them making the World Series. For instance, if the Red Sox get Max Scherzer, I would instantly think they are going to the World Series and they are going to win. I mean, think about what that rotation could look like if you have Nathan Eovaldi, then Chris Sale comes back and you add Max Scherzer at the trade deadline. You instantly have the best pitching rotation in all of the American League. And if Eduardo Rodriguez can ever get his act together, you might have the best pitching staff in all of baseball. That is a move that the Boston Red Sox should definitely make. The other big move the Red Sox should consider is adding Chicago Cubs first baseman Anthony Rizzo. This would be a rental because I don't think the Red Sox are going to give him a long-term contract near the $80 to $100 million range. But Anthony Rizzo has a history with the organization. He was drafted there. The Cubs are going to be sellers. If the Red Sox get Anthony Rizzo, that would solidify their first base position and make them instant contenders in my mind. And that is a guy who has won a World Series. He is a proven winner, and I think he would be a plus for this team. For the San Francisco Giants, there is one clear thing they need to add: a slugger. That team has some nice positional players. Buster Posey is having having a great year. They have Brandon Crawford. They have Brandon Bell. They have some nice guys on their offense, but they need an offensive player who will put them over the top. So here are the names I think they should go after. First, Joey Gallo. The guy is wasting his best years in Texas. I mean, this is one of the best sluggers in all of baseball. He's not a very good defensive player, but boy, could the San Francisco Giants use a home run boost by a player like Joey Gallo. I also think they should be in on Colorado Rocky shortstop Trevor Story. I mean, move him to second base, move him to third base. I don't care. The Giants could use a guy like Trevor Story. He's played in that division. He could really put that offense over the top. And the last name is a guy that both of these teams should consider. Both the Red Sox and Giants should look out to trade for Chicago Cubs third baseman Kris Bryant. This guy can play all over the field. You can put him at any position. If the Giants or Red Sox got Kris Bryant, I would look at them as instant contenders. This is a guy who's won Rookie of the Year. He's won a World Series. He's won an MVP. Get this guy on one of these two rosters, and I will look at them at legitimate World Series contenders. Those are the type of moves that these two teams should be looking to make if they want to be looked at as legitimate World Series contenders. They both need something to put them over the top as prohibitive favorites. And if they do that, instead of being just a nice story, they can turn into something special, a World Series winner. I believe both of these teams have that potential if they make a blockbuster move like the ones I've mentioned. Because for both of these teams, this might be a year for them to steal a World Series away, because I don't feel like either of these teams are going on some long run of competing year in and year out. Yes, the Red Sox have some nice young stars, but what happens if Xander Bogaerts opts out of his contract and asks for a boatload of money? What if JD Martinez leaves in the offseason? This could be the last year for them to compete at this high of a level for quite a long time. And then with the Giants, that roster's not getting any younger. Evan Longoria is on his last legs. Buster Posey is having one of his last great seasons. He doesn't have a lot left in the tank. Take advantage of the moment. Go out and trade for Kris Bryant and end up taking home a World Series away from the Dodgers and Padres. I mean, a victory for the Giants over those two teams would be fantastic for the organization, and they're a team that has a great fan base. I would love to see the San Francisco Giants make a big trade and make a splash and get back to the World Series. The same with the Red Sox. It would be a fantastic story. The other great stories about these two teams is both of their managers fall from grace over the last year. Alex Cora was suspended from baseball. People thought he was never going to come back. Then the Red Sox rehired him, and now he's back on top as one of the better baseball managers. And then you have Gabe Kapler, who was laughed out of Philadelphia. They all called him an analytical monster. He only cared about the analytics. Now he's on the San Francisco Giants thriving, while Joe Girardi is out there making himself look like a clown in Philadelphia. I mean, both of these guys are having tremendous years as managers of both the Red Sox and the Giants. It's huge comeback stories from both of these managers. Overall, I think it's time for people to stop waiting for these two teams to fall off of a cliff, because at this point, I don't think that it's going to happen to either the Boston Red Sox or the San Francisco Giants. And I think there is a chance that these two great stories get even better. In fact, I think the best possible outcome for these two teams is to meet up in the World Series. Like I said earlier, these two teams dominated the 2010s. It would be great to finally see them go head to head in the postseason. I mean, that would be a great matchup for baseball in the World Series. These are two great markets. They have great fan bases. They have great stars on them. For the Red Sox, you have Devers, you have Bogaerts, you have JD Martinez. Chris Sale might come back. For the Giants, you have Buster Posey, Kevin Gausman, Evan Longoria. I mean, these guys are all having fantastic seasons, and sometimes it's great to have a surprise matchup in the championship round. I mean, that's what's happening in the NBA right now. At the beginning of the year, nobody expected the Bucks and the Suns to meet up in the NBA Finals, and we might be going down that same rabbit hole in the MLB postseason. There is a chance, if not a slight one, that the Boston Red Sox and the San Francisco Giants end up meeting in the World Series, and I think that would be great. Both of these teams have been good for so long. They had bad years last year, but now that both have bounced back in a significant way. What's so weird is people would still be shocked if that ended up happening happening? That's what I don't understand. When are people going to realize the Boston Red Sox and San Francisco Giants are good baseball teams? This year, they are very good baseball teams who are at the very least going to make a run in the postseason. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Head to Head Podcast. I'm Cam McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Monday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So please rate, review, and subscribe.